Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the DropKick Podcast. This is our 5th episode, and we just want to thank the people supporting us. And it's been a crazy, unbelievable week for me and Vikram and the podcast. And today we have a special guest with us. He's a former WWE Cruiserweight Champion.
He was the winner of WWE's Cruiserweight Classic.
He's a former TNA X Division Champion.
And he had Evolve Wrestling's Breakout Match of the Year in 2010.
Right, so please welcome TJP, a.k.a. TJ Perkins. How have you been handling your time in quarantine, man?
Mostly normal for me. I haven't really had to quarantine very much or anything. I still get out and do all the normal stuff. I'm still traveling, still visiting family and friends and stuff. So, yeah.
The home workouts and the pizza diets like you had on your Instagram.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, that's just me kind of having some fun. I mean, life for me is mostly not that different. I don't really go out very much anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere I will go, I still go. You know, I don't really stay in the house. If I want to go to the store, I go to the store, and I go visit family. I'll fly or whatever if I want to visit friends or something like that. I built a gym in my house a few years back, so that was one of the better investments I ever kind of did. So now I haven't really had any trouble as far as not missing any beat as far as training or anything like that. And otherwise, I mean, I normally wouldn't go out very much. I don't drink or do drugs or anything. I don't go to bars or nothing. So usually I spend my days playing video games in my office anyway. So it's not
well, what
really
have you
much.
been playing recently?
Let's see. I actually got cause I'm in my office right now. I got my PlayStation up on my desk.
Oh, nice.
Usually every day is Overwatch. I'll play a lot of Overwatch, a lot of Fortnite. A lot of Predator since it just came out. Battlefront 2. Fire Pro. I just finished Resident Evil 2, the two different stories, so I'm going to start 3 pretty soon. Dead by Daylight, NBA 2K, MLB, just a little bit of everything.
Fire Pro is a great game.
Yeah,
Fire Pro's a great game. Pro. Yeah, I just started streaming on my Twitch channel again recently, and the first game I did, first day back was Fire Pro. I did a day. The whole stream was just Fire Pro matches, yeah.
Where can everybody find you on Twitch?
Same as pretty much all my socials are all at Mega TJP. So you can find me at Twitch TV/Mega TJP.
Yeah. Make sure to check that out, everybody.
Sure.
So for a lot of people, especially in the mainstream who only pay attention to mainstream wrestling, their first eyes were on you in 2016 when WWE introduced the Cruiserweight Classic and revitalized the Cruiserweight division. So throughout that tournament, you were the winner, which is a very large accolade. What would you say is the favorite match that you had during the Cruiserweight Classic?
Ooh, good question. I rewatched a few of the matches recently. It's not the first time, but maybe only the second time I'd seen him back. I don't really watch a lot of my stuff back, but I was picking out a few for a friend of mine who's studying some things. He had some questions, similar questions, I guess. But and I think in retrospect, I really liked the Gargano match.
Maybe that was really good.
Yeah, that was very good.
Yeah, I mean, all the matches I had every round, I kind of had to play quarterback on, but that particular one, just there's a lot kind of going on. There's a lot of different narratives to the match, and so I felt like it accomplished a lot. And he's a really talented opponent. We're very similar in the way we approach it, so it's a lot of fun when you can get in with a guy like that. But I mean, I really liked all of them. Obviously, the Ibushi match is I guess super. Maybe the more iconic one of maybe the whole tournament, I guess, and for me that was really big because that kind of sealed the impression of me for the office and the administration because they saw what I was capable of, and I guess it kind of validated the position they were putting me in. So
yeah. Sure. Speaking of the office and administration, I actually saw your interview with Chris Van Vliet not too long ago, and you said when you won the Cruiserweight title, you weren't even signed. Did you consider pulling a Medusa on the whole thing?
No, Yeah, I wasn't signed. I didn't. They didn't have my contract FedEx to me until like a few days before the pay-per-view the next week, because I did Clash of the Champions the next week.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I laugh a lot of times, like when like, because you know, a lot of like diehard fans are like conspiracy theorists. So you know, like
What can I say?
and so a lot of them, like they were like, well, you know, TJ was the safe bet. I was the least safe bet. I remember we all got our contract offers the same night, same room. We all sat in the theater at Full Sail. I remember it was like, I don't know, one of the middle rounds after the first or second round. All of us, Zach, Ibushi, everybody included. And I remember talking, like, Zach's a good friend of mine. I remember talking to Zach, and he was not really sure about it. I know that he really wanted to get back to New Japan. And when I got out of TNA, I really wanted to go back to Japan and Mexico. And I really wanted to try and be part of the Lucha Underground show that was going on at the time. You know, so I thought that was a really cool project that had started, and it turned into this really good thing that they did for a few seasons. And I'd always wanted to do a show like that. When it came up, I was like, wow, this is like a dream come true. I knew it wasn't gonna last forever, but yeah, it was something that at the time I really wanted to do. And when they first asked me, I told them I didn't say yes right away. I had to think about it. And like, I kind of told them, like, I kind of said, I didn't say no, but I kind of said no, like, because I told him I really would like to do the show, and I really kind of wanted to go back to Japan and Mexico, and I've been in TNA for 4 years. I was in Ring of Honor, like, I didn't know if they really wanted me there, you know. So when they made the offer, so I didn't really know. So like, there was a ton of guys that were a way safer bet than me, because I didn't take it right away. I said, I got to go home and think about this. And I kind of gave it a day or two, and Regal really kind of changed my perspective on that. He talked me into it. He said, you know, you're getting older, you've reached an age where you should settle down and stop bouncing around so much. So anybody who enjoyed my time there, like, should really thank Regal, because he kind of pulled me aside by the shirt sleeve and was like, listen, I don't want to see you like turn this down or anything. So you should really do this. So.
Yeah. Speaking of William Regal, how did you feel when you won the Cruiserweight Classic, and when Triple H and William Regal came down to congratulate you on that big milestone of your career, I should say? How big did that feel for you?
I mean, it was cool, but like, that part felt a little bit more theatrical, because after every round, they were all waiting behind the curtain for me. So that was new to me. Like, usually my experiences going to WWE as a younger wrestler, they didn't care about you. So,
right.
Like, you know, you might as well have been garbage to them most of the time. That's just how they kind of make you feel. So it was really weird to me that they babied me a lot. Like, when the first day in with all the meetings, like, I mean, I couldn't have been a worse, like, model citizen. I mean, like, I wasn't like a behavioral problem, but like, I would show up late, or like, I wasn't always paying attention to the meeting. Like, I didn't take it that seriously. I had the foresight to know that the tournament was going to be a big landmark for wrestling history, but I didn't think that I had a place there going forward after that. I just said, I'll do this, and then I'll probably end up back in Mexico, or I'll probably go back to New Japan or something like that. And I mean, you know, I would be late for a meeting, and they would usher me into a back room and like, here, we're going to catch you up on everything. And I'm like, why are you guys treating me so like important?
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, sure.
It was like the Twilight Zone. And so like, after every match, you know, Hunter, Regal, Sean had just started working there before people really knew that he was coming in to coach and to be a producer. Like, Shawn Michaels would be waiting there, to Norman Smiley, Terry Taylor, like a lot of the more important people in the system. And they were always waiting for me in the back just to give me encouragement or advice, or if there's, you know, whatever. And they're always making sure I was happy with what I did and everything. And so when they came out at the end, I remember thinking, I'm like, now everybody gets to see what they do to me after every match. Like, they like baby me and give me hugs and stuff and make sure that I'm happy.
Great, man. Yeah.
But it was cool. I mean, you know, like, you spend so many times, like I said, you go there and you feel like there's no validation in what you're doing. So when you know, life and all that, it's not fair. Like, and it's never going to be. So like, you know, you have moments where you spend years where it's not fair to you. And then when you get in a moment where now you're benefiting from it, it feels nice, because it feels like you went through a lot of crap just to be able to at least get there. Yeah. Even if it's just brief, you get to see the other side of the the
For
coin,
sure.
you know, for a little bit.
Coin.
So it was nice.
Yeah. Speaking of jumping ship, what did you think about your run in TNA Suicide? Do you feel like you stepped up since then and mentally grew as a person? What were some of the challenges you faced? Like, was it hard to breathe in that mask? Or
I actually posted this picture recently because somebody asked me the same question. It was hard to see, or they asked me what it was like. I said it was like being waterboarded, which that is what it's like. It's crazy. It's so bad. It's like being suffocated.
Wow.
And
that sucks.
and then they asked if you could see, and I took a picture from like it's like what it looks like through the eye screens,
Right.
and like you can't, if I hold my hand up like this, I can't see how many fingers. I could see my hand there, but I can't see the details.
The fingers.
Yeah, so like if I'm running to like the ropes and I want to like jump on the ropes, I can just see kind of a blur of blue. I don't really know exactly where the ropes are. I just know when I'm getting close to them.
That's
yeah, I mean that, and I expressed that at the time. So I mean that's something that we kind of worked around and troubleshooted. But I mean I enjoyed my time as the character. It is sort of ironic because when they first were brainstorming the characters back in 2008, and I was there before as Puma, and when I was there as Puma, I remember being in Houston. We were at the pay-per-view in Houston, and we were in the locker room, and Frankie Kazarian came back and was super disappointed, and he's like, they just pitched me this new character and I don't want to do it. And he had just started being able to kind of come into his own and be himself. And I, you know, I think everybody that portrayed Suicide did a great job, but like a lot of those guys, they're and myself included, everybody was better off as what they wanted to
themselves, right?
Yeah, and I felt in his case, this was really his time to do that. And we joked as a group, like, we should just have TJ do it because he's already in a mask. And I laughed. I said, haha, yeah, that'd be great. And I think I was done with TNA for like a few years after that. And I didn't think anything of it. And so Frankie and Daniels were Suicide off and on a little bit for a few years. When I came back, it just they brought me back again as Puma. They didn't have an idea for me, and I sat at home for a few weeks. I saw the bumpers, and I called the office and I said, well, I don't know what you want me to do going forward, but if you need somebody to do that character for like a show, I know you're bringing it back for like one night only, I'll do it. And they said, okay, that'd be a great idea, and we'll see what we can do with you going forward. And they just, when I think I portrayed it in the way they had always envisioned it being. Everybody before was more of a heavyweight, and I think they always wanted that sort of Spider-Man, Deadpool comic book type of action. And like I'm a little bit more versatile in as far as the balance of styles. The other guys have, you know, they have more of a specific style in the way they work, and so I feel like they got what they never thought they would have. So once I did it once, they were like, you gotta keep doing it. But I liked it, you know, I enjoyed it a lot. And I think now looking back, I appreciate it more because there's, when you think of like if you made a short list of things that's sort of like iconic images for, I mean, any company, you think of WCW, you think of Sting, you know, you think of Sting, you think of Hollywood Hogan, you think of Kevin Nash, the NWO. When you think of TNA, I mean, you think of AJ, obviously. You know, you probably think of Jeff Jarrett, you know, you think of the Ultimate X or like the 6-sided ring, the Impact Zone. And I think Suicide is on that list. You know, it's a synonymous
absolutely.
with that. And so to have been like the more prominent one was, you know, to me, that's awesome.
Great.
Like, I love it.
Yeah. So would you say there's anything that you regret so far throughout your pro wrestling career?
I don't know. Trying to go to FCW, maybe. I might regret that a little bit. I mean, I don't regret that. Like, you know, it's easy to say all the right things as far as like motivation. Like, you got to go out and chase your dreams. You got to, you know, do the work. You got to do this. You got to do that. But like, you know, I mean, people fail, man. Like, I don't regret that at all because a lot of that carved out a better performer. I know I became a better businessman for one, like because every year since then and everything I've gone through, I've always made smart decisions as far as what I wanted to do and made it work, and you know, obviously I have a roof over my head now, and like at the time it was different, but I mean, I don't really regret anything. Like, I loved going to the dojo at a young age and moving to Mexico. And I chose to come back from Mexico early. Some of the other guys stayed there. And I remember thinking at the time, maybe that was a mistake, but coming back early got me into Ring of Honor earlier than they did. So I was in Ring of Honor year one. I was in TNA year one. So then I wouldn't have been doing, pay-per-views at 19 years old if I didn't make that decision. So there's a lot of stuff, you could regret it, but I mean, it's like Back to the Future, the lesson in it is that you could go back and change anything to try to make your future better. But, at the end of the day, the journey that you went on was that you were meant to do every piece of it. So, I probably wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. Some things are just meant to be, for sure.
Yeah. So, we like to tap into mental health on our podcast as well. We like to speak about struggles on the road, whether it's for WWE. We usually focus on WWE because they usually have the toughest schedule, 300 days a year. How would you say your mental health was on the road? Was there any struggles? Like, what would you say about that?
I mean, I feel like a good comparison. Like, I sympathize a lot with what like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant speak on it a lot, the mental health of NBA players and the microscope they're under and the pressure they feel, and really like the type of outside pressure from people, because it's such a different generation now than any other time in history. Sure, now, like, our social media, like, okay, you show up to work and, like, especially when I was first getting to WWE, a lot of flack young guys would get is setting up their PlayStation and stuff in the locker room. But it took a few years for people to realize, especially like the older guys. And I'm technically an older guy. Like, other than maybe Jericho and Undertaker, nobody in that locker room had been doing it longer than me. I just look younger. And I guess I am young for the amount of years, but like, I had an interesting perspective being between them because I had more years than most, but I was also young enough to relate to what was going on.
Right.
And I use this example because it took a few years for like the old heads to kind of accept that, well, this is just what playing cards was to Andre. Us setting this up, like me and Kofi playing Madden is Andre and Randy Savage playing cribbage or whatever, you know. That's just what they did. That's the game they played. This is the game we played. And then same thing, like a lot of younger guys, they'll get a lot of flack for being so caught up in social media. And that's really what I think the fulcrum in all this is social media.
Toxicity starts from there. Yep.
Yeah. And the reason that's unique is because it took, now I feel like people are starting to understand, at least as far as the profession goes, that like our Twitter, our Instagram, that's our newspaper. So where like Andre, Hogan, these guys just sit down in the locker room in 83 and they'll play poker and they'll read the newspaper. For us, we play NBA and we read Twitter. That's where we're getting our news, and just like with newspapers, there's, propaganda and, half-sided biased reporting. That's just where we're getting what's going on in the world. The difference is the newspaper isn't a two-way window. Social media is. And I think that's what makes it so different is like, a lot of older generation people, like, they don't understand when Kyrie or Kevin Durant are like trying to kind of break that fourth wall for everybody to be like, look at the from outside the box looking, look at the microscope we're under. This is why we have such poor mental health and, and so like weak emotionally. And older generation people in whatever team sport or walk of life or whatever, like usually like some sort of entertainment or touring thing. Like they're like, well, back in our day, it's like, like guys were tougher, but it's like back in your day, you didn't have that two-way window.
You didn't have that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, I just want to say, it's actually kind of funny that you spoke about having PlayStations and stuff in the locker room. I wouldn't have guessed that, but like when you said that, it's actually so relatable because I'll be completely honest with you, the way me and Daniel were preparing for this interview before this, we were reading our notes.
Oh
and
my god!
We're playing WWE 2K19.
It was.
That's the GOAT one, by the way, too. Everyone went downhill at 20, so I'm glad I made it.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But I think that's really that's kind of the thing. So like being, in my experience being there, like that's what makes it tough, you know. Like for me, I don't usually like I'm wired to not get nervous about things or to necessarily have anxiety, generally speaking. Like like most of the time I'm pretty steady-handed with anything. Sometimes it's to my detriment. Like I'm kind of a cold person at times because it's like you don't even not only do you not get excited or nervous or stuff, it's like it's almost like you don't even connect to the stuff you're doing. Exactly. This is how I was wired, like for better or worse. But even being there, like at times, like, you know, the pressure gets really stressful just because of like how you, I don't know, it's just there's a natural way of getting stuck in a tug of war between thousands and thousands of strangers and bosses and like coworkers and things that are faceless, you know, like you're working amongst faceless peers at times, you know, and bosses that that are faceless at times, not voiceless but faceless, so that makes it tough, you know. You can't hit an opponent that you can't see, you know what I mean, like, so it's hard to solve problems. You know, so when you get, you know, it's a very unique atmosphere where you kind of feel a little bit crushed by everything because of that.
For sure. But yeah, speaking of mental health and stuff, I watched Chris Van Vliet's interview. Back to what Vikram said. You said in a past interview that you were making more money now, working all these like indie dates and working for Japan and stuff. You make more money now than you did in WWE. How has that shocked you in any way? Are you surprised how they treated you now than they did before?
You mean as far as like freelance wrestling?
Yeah.
Or no, the thing I think for me is just like I hadn't really been free and like on the indies in so long. So for me, like the last time I was really like a bona fide indie guy was like 2009, 2010, around then. Because like 2012, 13, I was back in Ring of Honor for a couple of years, then in TNA for 4 years, and I did that MTV Lucha show for a couple seasons before those two. So it's like I had like, you know, between 15 and 16, I had maybe 6 months between TNA and WWE where I was free to do whatever. And I kind of I was really choosy. I basically just did Evolve and some Mexico stuff, and I didn't really do the indies. So in last year, you know, 2019, like back in 09 and 10, like that was the last time I was really on the indies. It's a very different place. Like the indies are so different now. Distribution for the shows is different. There's a lot of like digital outlets for it. Merchandising is turned guys into these like independent entrepreneurs, and like there's, you know, people have like, you know, Patreons and channels on Twitch and all kinds of different stuff, and like YouTube blogs and like all these things that they monetize. And so you know, the indies was not like this like when I was last in it, and it certainly wasn't like it when I first started back in 1998. I mean, it's so different. So so for me, it wasn't really a shock how I was like treated as far as like it being good. I just like I was kind of learning how to be a wrestler all over again because it wasn't like this. But yeah, I mean, I did better than I thought. I did better than, you know, the last few years that I was in WWE. But that I think people misunderstand that. I think they think that that's the case because maybe like WWE was compensating super low, and that's not the case at all. Like I did really well there. I just was surprised at how much better I was able to do when I could pack my own schedule.
Exactly, for sure.
Which, you know, it mostly just validated the reasons why I kind of wanted to get out, you know. Like I was already kind of not happy, but like I felt professionally that maybe it was a smart thing to do to kind of have my own options. And so, you know, seeing all the changes and kind of learning how to be a wrestler all over again. Yeah, that's really what it was about.
Yeah. You said you went all over the world after. So traveling all over the world, and what would be your dream match like right now? Who would you like pick as an opponent?
Every time somebody asks me what my dream match is, I always say the next one. I've never really been one to have like a bucket list of things like that. I've never looked at another person like that. Like that.
Like there's someone higher, right?
Yeah, like I've never looked at anybody like that. I mean, there's guys I really like, and and obviously there's guys that are heroes of mine or whatever. In my case, none of my heroes are wrestling anymore, so some aren't alive anymore. But you know, I mean, I'd probably I think I tend now to go with maybe Ray, you know, because he'll be done soon. And I would love to I've wrestled with him in a tag before, and I've met him. I know him, you know, a little bit, and he's somebody that I've always looked up to, and especially like knowing him on the back end of his career, he as a professional, he became sort of a model for me. When I first started, I was super small, so he was a model for how I could carry myself. But eventually I kind of outgrew that and, you know, started looking to others as far as like in the ring. Right. But outside of the ring, as I got older, I started to see like how great of a model he was for young wrestlers to manage a career and, you know, to manage themselves outside of the ring. And so I've always looked up to that. And I just, you know, he's become so timeless, and he's such like, you know, you wouldn't always have put him on the Mount Rushmore of Lucha Libre, but now it's like, how could you?
He has to, exactly.
And to have been alive for that transition, like for him to be like the Michael Jordan of Mexican wrestling that's pretty, it's awesome to see. And so like, I would love, you know, to have one more with him sometime.
If Ray's watching this, what would you say to him?
Time for a call out.
Yeah. If you hang it up, save one more for me. And I'll save one for Dominic before I hang it up.
Oh my god,
his voice is really good, man. I love, and I got to see him a lot. Like before I left WWE, he would be on the road a lot, and so you know, I think that they have such an awesome like connection. And his relationship with him is so great, and I think his kid is going to be so good if he continues to apply himself.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a great future in this business, it seems like. So, the Cruiserweight Championship, it returned in 2016. Ever since 2016, we've seen you with the title, Brian Kendrick, Rich Swann, Pac, Enzo Amore, countless guys, Leo Rush. Who would you say, in your opinion, besides yourself, of course, had the best title reign?
Ooh. I mean, I don't know if I would have said me anyway. I might have had the best climb, but I'd probably say maybe Cedric. It felt like it reached a point where it felt normalized. Like the title didn't feel brand new anymore, and he was wrestling a lot of different dudes. And he seemed like the perfect model for that position. I think a lot of guys would have went with Pac, and I loved wrestling Pac. I just think that when you build a brand new group of guys around one person, it becomes problematic because now everybody's first introduction to the people is we're all losers except for this guy.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah, we're having great matches, but from a storytelling point of view and a narrative point of view, all it does is make everybody not want to see anybody but him, but they want to see him with other guys because of how awesome he looks beating everybody else. So I felt like that was like I wish I could have wrestled Pac more without the title involved, if that makes any sense. Like I loved having him in the division. I hated how the stories we had to tell because it just felt like it was doing more harm than good. But I think by the time it got to like Kalisto and Cedric, they had kind of gotten away from like building the show around one person like Pac or Enzo. And Enzo's another guy. Like I think he's incredibly talented. I love working with him. I love being around him, like in locker rooms and stuff. He's generally a very positive dude and a smart guy. But I think when they had the show built around single people, like it made it so isolated, you know. And we already had trouble not being able to interact with other characters on the other shows. So it's like we have to give them something. So I felt like in the beginning it was better that nobody had it for too long. By the time it settled down, I felt like Cedric had probably the best position on it.
Speaking of that, I think you guys should have been more featured on like wrestling like normal Raw wrestlers like Seth Rollins and Chris Jericho. Like that would have been pretty fresh. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
So.
I mean, from a system point of view, I think it just came across as broken because of the segregation between us and the rest of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, if a guy comes out of NXT or FCW, whatever it is, Deep South, whatever the Ohio Valley, whatever it is, you get a guy like say Elias. They debut on Raw, they're gonna come up by themselves, so they're not sharing the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
2, they're immediately gonna work with a guy like say Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
So you're immediately jumping on the mic against Jericho. You're sliding in the ring and attacking Jericho, something like that. So you're going with somebody that has all this emotional equity with fans.
Right.
And, generally you don't lose the first thing out of the gate. If you do, it doesn't really matter. But if, when you beat that guy, you just beat somebody that people have been watching for 10 years. Exactly. So now you get to go on and share that with other people. And we were the reverse. We were 10 guys all coming in at once, like arm in arm, and nobody's seen any of us. And we're not debuting opposite of a Jericho or somebody like that. We're debuting opposite each other.
Right.
So it takes more than a few matches for people to understand who you are.
For sure.
But so that's why I think that making the show built around one guy so quickly ended up hurting that. And I it flips the formula inside out.
Right.
Monday Night Raw 1993 is a great example of our show because it's like a 1 hour show, kind of a small roster, but it didn't hurt Shawn or Lex Luger or guys like that to lose to Bret. So you can build that roster around a Bret Hart. It's fine because they don't lose. They're familiar with all these guys. Macho Man can lose to Bret. That's fine. But any of us lose, you might not see us for a few months. And that's the only thing the fans saw is we lost in 6 minutes on Raw. That's a tough thing to do. So, I wish we could have got more multi-man stuff where everybody was, more evenly distributed. Nobody would really hold on to the title for too long, just so that people can really get used to who we are and start picking their favorites, like Disney characters or Marvel characters. Like, oh, that's my guy. I've seen him do this in a few matches. That's my guy. Like, it took so long to get to that point.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you see yourself signing with WWE again, or could you see yourself possibly signing with AEW?
I mean, I'll play for whatever team wants me to play. I guess, it would just come down to what their needs are and what, I would, what position I would want to be in, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, I've never been somebody that was like, I've never been starstruck by a logo. If I was a baseball player, I wouldn't, I'd listen to the Yankees as much as I'd listen to the Orioles. Like, it doesn't matter to me. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't not go back there. I would love to go to AEW. That's fine too. But it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, just having fun and making a good living is what matters most to me. It doesn't really matter where that comes from.
Sure.
I guess the difference between that and most guys, like for me, like buzz and clout is zero part of the equation. That I literally don't care what, like how popular the team is. I'll play for them if it meets the criteria of me having fun. And
then why not?
Maintaining some freedom and making good money. I don't care. It does not matter to me what place you're in the standings.
As long as you're happy, right? So what matters.
I mean, I'll jump on board and help you win the games. That's it. It doesn't matter to me where you are.
For sure. Speaking of your epic journey to where you are right now, what got you into pro wrestling? What was that one moment that made you go, okay, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, no matter what anybody tells me? What was that moment for you?
I don't know that I had any one moment. It's just my earliest memories. Yeah, my earliest memories with my dad are like when I was 2-3 years old, was watching Saturday Night's Main Event and the old 80s WWE and WWF at the time, the old logo flying over the water, and like that generation with Piper and $1 Million Man, Jake the Snake, Hogan, Warrior. I was a big Hogan guy, big Ultimate Warrior guy. It just was something that it was the only thing I was interested in. And I mean, by the time I was preteen, I had already just assumed that that's what I would do someday. There was really never one moment where I was like, I got to do this. I just like that's all I knew growing up.
You just knew, man. Yeah.
Like when I was like 5, 6 years old, I'd probably have a hard time picking Disney characters out of a lineup. I knew they were Disney, but
you're just like, you can't.
Yeah, like I didn't retain that from an entertainment standpoint. Like I knew what it was, I was entertained by it, but I just didn't stick with me. Wrestling always did. So for whatever reason, I just always knew I would do it.
You just knew it. Yep. Well.
Yeah.
We just want to thank you for joining us today. It was a short interview, but thank you for taking the time out of your day for joining the DropKick Podcast. And
my pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me.
We play this game with everybody, so you have to use one word or one sentence to describe 10 wrestlers that we name off our list.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Triple H.
Entrepreneur.
Brian Kendrick.
Eccentric.
William Regal.
Classy.
Pac.
Headstrong.
Enzo Amore.
Passionate.
Vince McMahon.
Genius.
Ace Austin.
Motivated.
Kota Ibushi.
Quirky.
Zack Sabre Jr.
Diligent.
Mustafa Ali.
Plastic.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everybody find you on social media?
I don't have a whole lot of different socials. I'm not a good enough entrepreneur in that way yet. I got an Instagram and a Twitter. Both are at Mega TJP, and then if you I started streaming again on Twitch, so my Twitch channel is the same thing. Also at Mega TJP. I had a merchandise store up on my own website, which had a touring schedule, but now there's not much of a touring schedule for anybody, I guess. But I merged it with my Pro Wrestling Tees. So if you go to Pro Wrestling Tees under TJP, you could find all the Detonation Kick stuff and a lot of merch stuff. And which
merch
it's right there. I saw that when you jumped on.
I was hoping for you to notice.
my old Wolves Rancid shirt.
Yeah.
So,
I actually met you at Smash Wrestling last May.
Yeah,
that's when I got this off you. Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much everything I got going, and yeah, you could find me on Impact Wrestling, and also going forward. I mean, when everything's back to normal with New Japan Pro Wrestling as well.
Well, thanks for taking the time, man.